Okay, so hi everyone. So at the start, Andrea asked, what are we currently kind of passionate about, or what are we into? And this has been a topic of mine recently because I'm writing a chapter for a course, and my section is organizational design. So I've been quite into this of late, and we obviously all know Peter Drucker's statement of culture eats strategy for breakfast. And here, the proposal is that culture kind of precedes, structure precedes culture, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But I'm not the first person to claim that. In fact, the image that you see comes from a Medium article some time ago, and there's also a more recent book called Loon Shots where the phrase came up, structure eats culture for lunch. And here in the UK it's almost lunchtime, or certainly for me, so it's quite appropriate timing for that too, and we'll come back to some cooking recipes at the end. So let's just look at some various different types of structures. We obviously, you know, the hierarchical structure, and the political games that kind of ensue because we haven't got much flexibility in terms of what we can do when we're got very strict hierarchically defined roles. We need to play the political game to get things done. So this is a copy of an image from the book Holocracy, which also talks about various organizational structures. So moving on from that, we've got obviously the matrix structure. That's probably the most prevalent structure these days. Obviously, these structures are not mutually exclusive. We see multiple of them in the same organization. But as we know, when we silo our departments and units, we end up with infighting, competing for scarce resources, and so on. Moving on to what we might call a value structure. This is an image from Scaled Agile. Boo. No, hang on. Actually, there is something to this, because if we've already got a hierarchical structure and we've got multiple locations geographically and so on, we need to create a value unit. We need to create end-to-end value. And to do that, we need to take people from all different parts of the organization and ring fence them. So that can be a necessary and very good first step towards getting a better structure, is to take the existing structure, take parts of those different structures and ring fence them. Now we can look at what we might call an agile structure. Most of these images, in fact, all of them are from Sociocracy. So there they talk about different patterns. So we're taking different elements of different structures, and we mix and match and adapt and adopt depending on our context. And if we then look at that in reality, we see that this happens all the time. We create circles, we create open spaces, we create fishbowls. All of these can be done online. In fact, those of you who attended the last Aginext, we ran an online fishbowl. I've run an online open space. Obviously, we do online circles all the time. This is one of them. And we can play with these different structures by using a game, for example, the medalist game, which allows us to kind of be more flexible about our structures. And in order to do that, we obviously need to know how to play with different structures to get our ends and objectives met. So I like to use, I came up with this idea of cooking. So again, it's lunchtime and we're talking about structure eating culture for lunch. We have recipes consist of ingredients. We then take bits of ingredients together and mix them together. And then eventually we come up with different recipes. And I see Andrea's mentioned liberating structures. We're getting there, Andrea. You're just jumping the gun. We've got ingredients, we've got patterns. So we've got Scrum, plan, do, check, act patterns, Kanban flow patterns. We then might mix some of those together. That's where we get things like Scrum coming about. And then when we put multiple of those mixtures together, we get recipes. The problem comes in when people jump straight to the recipes without, if you're a good cook, you need to understand the ingredients, the different quality of the ingredients, how the ingredients mix and match together. We create mixtures from them and then we create recipes. But obviously, if you jump straight to the recipes, the danger is that you might get that quite badly wrong. So we might come across different recipe books. So we mentioned some patterns from Sociocracy that can help us, liberating structures. lean change management has this idea that we first gather insights and then options, and then we start experimenting, but we never say the structure is fixed. We're always going through these loops of experimenting, and that ultimately is Agile. So why don't we apply that to our organizational structures as well? But in order to do that, we need to circle this cook over here, and that cook needs to know the ingredients, the mixtures, and then be able to apply those